What you got for me, boss man? Who's more moral, Paul or Muhammad?
The Prophet Muhammad, because Paul himself says that he's the worst sinner of them all.
That's okay. Does that mean he's better than Muhammad?
No, so the Prophet Muhammad's better because Paul said he's the worst sinner ever.
He said he was. He was the worst sinner. He repented of that sin. In what way is Muhammad more moral than Paul? Give me an example.
Uh, yeah, the example is that he wasn't pretending to be a non a Jew to a non-Jew or a Jew to a Jew. In First Corinthians, he was being very deceiving.
You think that's
Um,
deceiving? Hold
the
on, hold
Prophet,
on, hold on, really quick. You think that's
yeah,
deceiving?
that's very deceiving
Why?
because he's pretending to be something he's not. It's like if I went to a Hindu and I was like, "Oh, I'm a Hindu."
No. So, all right, let's go read the scripture you're referring to in First Corinthians.
I can't.
Yeah, my bad. I got a phone call. Let's go read the scripture you're referring to in First Corinthians. Let's see what it actually says. All right, let's go read
Yeah,
the
First
let's read the
Corinthians.
verse. Let's go to it. Hold on, give me 1 second, guys. All right.
First Corinthians 9.
Yeah, I got you. We gonna pull it up. Let's get it here. We'll go over it with you. Okay. All right. It says, "To the Jews I became as a Jew, that I might win Jews. To those who are under law, that I might win those who are under the law. To those who are without law, as without law, not being without law towards God, but under law towards Christ, that I might win those who are not with. Who are without law. And to the weak I became as weak, that I might win the weak. I have become all these things to men that I might save some." Now, this isn't deceiving. What is this? This is me saying, let's say I wanted to convert a Jew. Say I wanted to go speak to a Jew. If I wanted to go speak to a Jew and I invited him over for dinner, do I make pork chops that night? I don't eat pork anyway, but let's just say, for example, do I make pork chops that night when I invite the Jew over?
No,
No, why not?
because they're not going to eat it.
It would offend them almost. It would offend them. If they know I know they're a Jew, and they pull up for dinner and I put pork. Same thing with you, Abu Hamza. If I wanted to convert you and I invite you to dinner, I don't think you're allowed to come, but let's say you are. I don't know the exact rules. I'm not going to be presumptuous. Let's say I invite you to dinner and I cook pork chops, and you know you're a Muslim, and you know I know you're a Muslim. You're going to be highly offended by the fact that I put pork chops on that table, huh?
If you knew that I was a Muslim, yes, I would be offended. Yeah.
Exactly. So all Paul is saying here is, to a Jew, I'm going to behave like a Jew. I'm going to observe the fashions of Jews. I'm going to become as one who is under the law. I'm going to do everything that a Jew would do, as long as it's not against my God, so I can win the Jew. I'm going to become just like him. What's wrong with this?
Yeah, so he's saying, although I am not under the law, right, as to like he's trying to win them, right? So
Yes.
it's not a like so he's doing it for a particular purpose, right? He's saying, I have become all things to all people, so
Yeah.
that by all possible means I might. So he's becoming it seems like Paul's for the streets, man. With all due respect.
All Paul is saying, what Paul is saying, and it's a very righteous, moral thing to do. Paul's saying, I'm gonna sacrifice myself. I'm gonna become like you so that I can have a conversation with you and win you over. I'm gonna become like you. It's the same thing, right? If I were to go, like me, if I wanted to go, and I'll probably get my head, but not necessarily. Let's say Dubai for a good example. If I want to go to Dubai and preach the gospel, get in a lot of trouble. But let's say I wanted to go to Dubai and preach the gospel. Do I go to Dubai in cargo shorts and a t-shirt to preach the gospel to Muslims? No, of course not. Not even necessarily because it's against your religion to wear shorts. I don't know if it is, but I know it's not the culture there to wear shorts. So I'm going to become like the people who I'm going around. I'm going to put on the clothing that's necessary for them to say, okay, this guy is normal. This guy's a normal guy. Is that being deceiving? Of course not. That's being caring. That's saying I care about what these people think. I want them to come to Christ. So I don't mind putting on the clothing that looks like them. I don't mind eating what they eat. I don't mind living how they live. If someone lives in a hut in the woods and I want to convert them, I'm not gonna say, I'm gonna get a 5-star hotel and then go talk to them in the hut in the woods. No, I'm going to go stay in the hut in the woods with them. If they use outhouse, I'm gonna use outhouse. I ain't gonna go back into the city and go to my hotel, right? I'm going to become like them so that I can win them. What's wrong with this?
Yeah, there's no need for you to do that. I think you should just be yourself. You don't need to act like somebody to win them over, right?
Why not? But is it so once again? just use the example I gave in Dubai. If I try to preach the gospel in Dubai in shorts, they're gonna think I'm a madman, and they're never gonna hear what I have to say.
No, not necessarily.
More likely than not, it's a culture thing. It's the same thing with me. If someone comes to me and they're speaking in a certain fashion, I'm just not gonna listen. It is what it is. There's nothing you can say to me. I'm not gonna listen to you. It's kind of like no disrespect. It's kind of like Islam, right? The first thing that I'm getting jailed in Dubai. I'm just using an example. But the first thing you're gonna say to me is not. You're not gonna. It's exactly like when y'all do dawah. When you do dawah, when you're giving dawah to a Christian, what's probably the first thing you're gonna say? Just to being honest. Jesus was a Muslim. Jesus was a Muslim. You're not leaving Jesus when you join Islam because we respect Jesus as a prophet. The first thing you try to do is find some common ground with them, and that common ground is normally you saying Jesus was a Muslim. We respect Jesus as a prophet because you're attempting to find common ground with the person, right?
No, I understand, but this is not what Paul's saying. Paul's saying that even though I'm not under the law, I become like one under the law. So I'm basically acting like I'm under the law. So why do I need to act? That's like me, right? Pretending that I'm under the laws of Christianity just so I can win a Christian. No, I don't need to do that. Me trying to find a common ground, I don't have to compromise my religion or try and fit in with the Christian and try and say that okay, I'm sorry, go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, no. What I'm saying is he's not compromising his religion. The same thing I said. And I don't like this example because I don't eat pork. I don't think Christians, but that's another discussion. If I can not cook pork chops for dinner and become, as they would say, is one under the law, what's wrong with me doing this to try to win a Jew? What's the issue? If I want to put on tefillin and it's not against my religion to win over a Jew, what's the problem with doing it? If I want to put fringes, I got fringes that I wear when I go talk to the Hebrew Israelites because I become like the Hebrew Israelites. I become like them. I put on the fringes like they put on the fringes. It's not against my religion. So what's the issue with me doing it to say, listen, guys, we're not against each other in this aspect. In this aspect, we are like each other. We can be common.
And in that particular scenario, right? There's nothing wrong with that. But I'm saying the way Paul structures the way his sentences, it seems like he's being deceiving. And even in other parts in Romans, he says, if my falsehood, I'll read the verse in Romans, it says, someone might argue, if my falsehood enhances God's truthfulness and so increases his glory, why am I still condemned as a sinner? So Paul is saying that he lies to people in order to win them.
No, he doesn't. So really quick, if you would have kept reading the verse 10, this is exactly what Paul talks about, his freedom in Christ. But he's talking about not putting stumbling blocks before people, friend. If you would have read the chapter 10, the very explanation that Eusebius gave you is what Paul actually mentions. You don't go into a mosque with your shoes on and thinking you're going to preach the gospel because the only thing they're going to see is your shoes on running around the mosque. So like Jesus met sinners where they were at, this is what Paul is talking about. But I don't understand why this would be a contention against Paul, even if he was doing taqiyya. Remember, this is something that your prophet taught, so he would at least be doing the Muslim taqiyya.
Where does my prophet say act like a Christian in order to win the Christians?
Oh, you can act like a non-Muslim to save your life. That's taqiyya. So at the very least, he would be doing, he would be doing what your prophet taught. But remember, Paul.
What's why has got to do with anything? What?
Yeah. So if we're comparing Muhammad to Paul at the very least here would be doing taqiyya, like your prophet says okay to do. So this is not a good example to go to.
No, he's not doing taqiyya.
Paul is. If you would have read to chapter 10, I had this conversation with Shadid Lewis. If you would have read to chapter 10, Paul is talking about not putting stumbling blocks in people's way. You give up what you can do for the greater good for those people. You don't go into their house and eat pork chops if they're Jews. You don't go into the mosque with your shoes on because the first thing you're going to do is put a stumbling block in front of them and you're going to harden their heart to the gospel. Yep. You meet people where they're at.
For example, right? If I'm a Muslim, right? I'm a Muslim, right? If I go to a Christian, I'm not gonna pretend like I follow exactly what they're doing. And this is what Paul's doing. Paul is saying, like the one under the law, although myself I am not under the law, as to win those under the law. So he's acting like those under the law just so he can win them. So he has a clear agenda. He's doing this just to win them.
if you would have kept reading to chapter 10, if an unbeliever invites you to a meal and you want to go in, you can eat whatever is put before you without raising questions of conscience. But if someone says to you, this has been offered to sacrifice, do not eat it for the sake of both of you. So what he's talking about here is the Christian liberties. We can eat anything we want. But he's talking about not putting stumbling blocks in front of people, right? Paul says this, so whether you eat or drink, whatever you do, do it for the glory of God. Do not cause anyone to stumble, whether Jew or Greek or the church of God, even as I try to please everyone in every way, not seeking my own good, but the good of many. He uses the same exact example Nazarene used.
Precisely.
You're going to be offended if somebody brings pork chops in your house, bro.
That's different. In your analogy, there's nothing wrong with it, but the way Paul says it, it's like he's acting
that
like
was Paul.
that particular.
Paul continued. He just read you Paul.
That's 2 chapters later.
No, I know. In that chapter, he's saying if somebody offers you food, right, and even though it's been sacrificed to other, if you don't know that it's been sacrificed to idols,
He said don't even ask.
It, but if you don't eat it.
Yeah, so he's saying don't ask. He's saying become like them. So you don't even have to ask. Just eat it. You're fine.
No, but then in the chapter, in the same chapter, it says that if you are told that it's been sacrificed to idols, then don't eat it.
Yes.
Then don't eat it, right?
Yes.
Exactly. So I'm being honest with the text. I'm reading the text, right?
Yeah, but that's why you have to put the whole text in context, man. You can't just take. Paul continues to explain himself. You can't just read. You have to read the whole letter. This is a letter. The whole letter went out. They read the whole letter. They didn't stop. He didn't send chapter 2 and didn't send chapter 9 and didn't send chapter 11, right? He just sent a letter. We put chapters and verses in it later. So you have to read. That's why Travis continue to read the rest of the letter to you. Paul is explaining what he means. So he's not saying.
All right,
go ahead.
What about Romans when he says, if through my lie God's truth abounds to his glory, why am I still being condemned as a sinner?
Keep reading, as some slanderously charge me of.
So he's saying that's a lie.
But he's saying why? Yeah, he's saying why am I still condemned? If my lie brings people to God, why am I still condemned?
Let's put a verse. Give me the verse. We're going to try to read it again. Romans 9.
Romans 3. Romans 3.
Romans 9. I was studying too much this morning. Romans 3. All right, here we go. Let's go to the verse and we're going to show you what Travis is trying to tell you. Romans 3. What's the verse?
Verse 5 to 7.
But if our unrighteousness demonstrates the righteousness of God, what shall we say? Is God unjust who inflicts wrath? I speak as a man, certainly not. For then how will God judge the world? For if the truth of God has increased through my lie to his glory, why am I still judged as a sinner? And why not say, let us do evil that good may come, as we are slanderously reported, and some affirm that we say their condemnation is just. So Paul is saying this is a slanderous report, but even if it was true, what's the problem? But Paul is saying, I'm not doing this. He calls it a slanderous report. Slanderous.
So even if it was true, there's nothing wrong with it, right?
Even if it was true, what Paul is saying, even if it's true, if it's ending in the glory of God, it's ending in a good way. It ain't true. I'm not doing it. But anything that ends in the, I'll give you a good example, right? If a man dies in a car crash, is that a bad thing?
If someone dies in a car crash.
Yeah. Is that a bad thing?
Is it a bad thing? Yeah, it's a bad thing.
Bad thing. If someone comes to faith because that man died in a car crash, is that person coming to faith a good thing?
Yeah, it's a good thing, but there's no lie involved.
So there we go. No, my point is that something bad can come from something good. I'll give you an example that you would take too, right? In your paradigm, if I say something about Islam that's not true, I lied on Islam. And then someone goes and studies Islam and figures out that I lied and says Islam is the truth when they come to the truth. Was my lie a good thing for Islam?
But your intention wasn't to bring people to Islam.
I'm asking you, was my lie a good thing in your paradigm? Was my lie a good thing?
No, it wasn't a good thing.
So it's a bad thing that so that person should have never came to Islam. Even if my lie is what caused him to come, it's a bad thing. Still not a good thing. That's not a good outcome. Is that a good outcome?
It's just that because It's just that he actually intellectually investigates your claim, and he
Paul,
realized that your
Paul
claim
says
is
this is a
false.
slanderous charge, friend.
Exactly.
You brought up
Okay,
another example.
but the
Hold
host
on.
just said, Travis, but the host just said, even if it was true, there's nothing wrong with it. So if I lie to bring people to Christ, there's nothing wrong with it.
He says his condemnation is just, because God can still be glorified through sinners, but you're still going to be condemned
There
for
you go.
lying.
Exactly.
So Paul says that the condemnation would be just even if I were a liar, right?
It's still
So-
wrong.
Where does he
It
say
just,
that?
Yeah,
Just
Where-
read
He
it.
says he doesn't say that.
He
doesn't
does.
say that. He says,
He
why
said,
am I still being condemned as a
read
sinner?
verse, my man.
So he's saying,
Okay, do you have it
Oh
in front of
my
you?
gosh.
Do you have it in front of you right now?
yeah, I've got it right. in
Read
front of
verse
me.
8 throughout. Read the entirety of verse 8 all the way through. Don't stop.
Yeah. And why not do evil that God may come? As some people slanderously charge us with saying their condemnation is just.
Their condemnation is just.
Condemnation is just.
So why is he
They-
saying, why am I
they-
still being condemned as a sinner?
Because he didn't
All right,
do
so
it.
the
In verse
accusation
7.
here is a slanderous charge against Paul, and they're saying even if I was to do something horrendous and it leads to people coming to God, he's saying that their condemnation would still be justified. If someone were to use a lie and takia like your prophet taught, they would still be rightfully condemned. You pointing to another example that Muhammad said to do, by the way.
No, he doesn't. He doesn't say lie so you can bring people to Islam. Where does he say
He
that?
says you can lie to bring peace between people.
Okay, you can bring peace to someone, but not bringing them to. How is that a lie? That's not a lie. That's true. Anyway, so you're saying you're saying
No,
Paul didn't lie at all. One second. So you're saying Paul didn't lie
No,
at
he
all.
says it's a slanderous charge
Okay,
in the context.
Okay. So in Acts 21, right, when the Jews and James, right, they grab him, right, and they say to him, "You've been preaching against the law," right?
They don't
He
say,
denies
wait,
it, and what does he do?
read that again. Wait.
He didn't.
Bro, I know.
Read that
So-
whole
I
verse
know.
again.
Public service announcement: if you're a Muslim, don't trust yourself when you read.
Let's
Go
read this
back and
again. Let's
reread
read
it.
this in Acts, okay?
Yeah, Acts 21.
I got you. I love Acts. Now, Acts is probably my favorite book. I love the book of Acts.
Acts 21.
I got you.
And then Paul does a sin offering as well.
Let's read. Let's go to
Yeah.
Acts and let's read, okay? Now, hold on. Let me find it.
So we encourage any Muslim, don't ever trust yourself reading anything you read, even if that Muslim's you.
All right, here we go. And when they had come to Jerusalem, the brethren received us gladly. On the following day, Paul went in with us to James. All the elders were present. When he had greeted them, he told them in detail those things which God had done among the Gentiles through his ministry. And when they heard it, they glorified the Lord and said to him, "You see, brother, how many myriads of Jews they are who have believed and are zealous of the law. But they have been informed about you, saying you teach all the Jews who are among the Gentiles to forsake Moses, saying they ought not to circumcise their children and walk according to the customs." Did Paul do this?
Yes, he did. In his letters.
Wherever.
In his letters.
Hold on.
In Galatians 5.
Okay,
In Galatians 5,
perfect.
he literally says,
Calm down.
if you circumcise,
calm
Can
down.
I respond? Can I respond? Okay,
I hear what you said in Galatians. You said in Galatians, we'll respond to Galatians.
Yeah.
I heard what you said. You're saying in Galatians, when Paul says your circumcision is nothing or your circumcision is everything. He actually says both, but we're not going to go there right now. It's a whole nother conversation. Paul is talking, where is Galatia? Do you know where Galatia is? It's in Asia Minor. Galatians is a vast majority Gentile church. Paul is speaking to Gentiles saying, hey, there is no reason for grown men. You 35 years old, man. You have no reason to go get your foreskin cut off. Nowhere in Galatians does Paul say Jews.
That's not what he says.
Okay, let's go to Galatians and read it.
That's
Let's go to Galatians.
That's not what
Bro,
he said.
Let's go to
Galatians is about all of Galatians is about some Jews who came and tried to Judaize Gentiles.
Yes.
Don't tell us what Galatians is about.
That's the whole book.
Okay. And what's he doing? And what's Paul doing?
Paul is
saying,
not teaching
Paul
against the
saying,
law
don't listen to them, right?
because the Gentiles will never put under the law.
The Gentiles, right? So look, the Gentiles have no need to get circumcised when they come to Christ, is what Paul is saying. Gentiles, when you come to Christ, you have no need to get circumcised. What is the accusation that's put against Paul in Acts 21? That he teaches the Jews to forsake Moses. He never taught the Jews to forsake Moses. He taught Gentile Galatians that you have no reason to cut your foreskin off when you're 25 and you come to Christ. You ain't got to slice your foreskin off.
He actually doesn't. So I'll read it for you in Galatians 5. It says
Okay,
here,
go to Galatians 5.
mark my words. Mark my words. I, Paul, tell you that if you let yourselves be circumcised, Christ will be of no value to you at all.
Who is
So
he
if you,
speaking? Listen,
if you allow yourselves to be circumcised, he's not saying.
who is he?
Can I respond?
No, no.
Can I respond?
Who is he speaking to? Just answer. Who is he speaking to in Galatians when he says, "If you cause yourself to be circumcised"? Who is he speaking to? Come up here and just tell me who he's speaking to.
You're muting me.
Yeah, who is he speaking to in this verse?
This letter is for everyone.
No.
Is this letter
Okay, let me ask you a question, right?
Is this letter not for everyone?
If someone is
the Bible not for everyone?
Hold on one second, my man. If someone is a Jew, would they have not already been circumcised on the 8th day? Yes or no?
You 1 second. You do know that there's people that convert, right, to Judaism.
Then they're not a Jew. They're not a Christian. If
These aren't
this
isn't a conversion story.
if you're converting,
We're not speaking
Abu Hamza, if you're converting to Judaism, that means you're not trying to be a Christian. You're trying to be a Jew. You're not trying to be a Nazarene. You're trying to be a Jew. So this letter would not have been for them because they would not have been at the church in Galatia. They would have been at the synagogue in Galatia if there was one. They would not have been at the church. This letter is not for them. This letter is for people who are Christians, not people who are trying to become Jews. If you become a Jew, you're circumcised again on the 8th day. Even after your conversion, again, you will be circumcised on the 8th day after your conversion. So no one in this letter is a Jew if they have not been circumcised yet. It doesn't track. Sure,
Can I respond?
Yeah.
Can I respond?
Yeah.
There are Jews that, for example, Messianic Jews that believe Jesus is the Messiah, but they still hold to the old covenant laws.
And they,
so one second.
He's
so
addressing the Galatians.
1 second. The letter's for everyone.
Go ahead. Finish. I'm going to repeat it again.
So-
I'm probably going to drop you because you're not getting it.
So the letter, right? You're saying that it was only for the people of the Galatians or the Church of Galatia, right? I'm saying that the Bible is for everyone.
Okay.
Right? So
Abu Hamza,
it can be a. It's a.
Yeah,
one second,
but listen.
It's
No,
a universe.
I just want you to listen to what I'm saying. Let's try to track this one more time. If someone is a Jew, when do they get circumcised?
If they were born, if they're born on the 8th day.
If they're born a Jew, when do you get circumcised?
8 days later.
On the 8th day. Can an 8-day-old read the book of Galatians?
No, I'm not speaking about that. I'm speaking about
Galatians. Okay, so Galatians is written to grown men. You would agree, right?
Did you hear what I just said? I'm speaking about Messianic Jews.
Messianic Jews means they were already Jews to begin with. They're already Jews. And now they believe in the Messiah. So due to the fact they were already Jews, they would have been circumcised on the what?
No, they wouldn't be circumcised.
Messianic Jews literally means they're Jews who followed the Messiah. I'll give you an example. Peter was a Messianic Jew. Do you know when Peter was circumcised? On the 8th day. Christ is the Messiah and a Jew. Do you know when Christ was circumcised? On the 8th day. James, who wrote the book of James, the brother of Christ, was a Messianic Jew. Do you know when James was circumcised? On the 8th day. Jews are circumcised on the 8th day. Now, if someone wants to become a Jew when they're grown, they're still circumcised the 8th day after they complete their conversion. But
and you wouldn't be called a Gentile.
And you wouldn't be called a Gentile, precisely. Be a proselyte Jew, right? And on top of this, if they are converting to be a Jew, they would not be at the church in Galatia, because the church is not trying to make you a Jew. They're trying to make you, whatever you want to call it, a Nazarene, a follower of the way. At this point, it's past Antioch, so a Christian. Does that make sense?
Okay, but please let me respond without interrupted. The word Gentile is not mentioned at all in Galatians 5. It's not mentioned at all.
It's mentioned in
Here, friend.
Galatians 3. Read the whole letter. You can't start at
Okay,
Galatians 5.
So
Paul
Galatians
is addressing
5
the
when,
Gentiles of Galatia.
All right, watch it.
Stop.
Watch your head, Abu. Watch your head.
Yeah, watch it. Yeah, watch your kufi.
Because you didn't
So-
want to get it.